She had not sung that song for anyone, not once, not in 8 years. It existed in a single place, a small wooden box on the shelf in her bedroom in Las Vegas, handwritten on 3 pages of hotel stationery, the ink slightly smeared on the second page where something had fallen on it. She knew what had fallen on it. She had been there when it happened. She didn't need to look at the smear to remember. The song was written on the night of January 13, 2016. René had been gone for 2 days. Celine Dion had not slept, she had not eaten. She had sat at the piano in the hotel suite where she had spent the last weeks of his life, and she had done the only thing she had ever known how to do with pain that was too large for the ordinary world. She wrote a song. She never finished it, she never recorded it. She put it in the box and put the box on the shelf, and in 8 years she had opened it exactly twice, both times by accident, reaching for something else, her hand finding the box before her mind caught up. Both times she had closed it immediately. Both times she had stood in the bedroom for a long time afterward, not moving, just breathing. She had told no one about the song, not her children, not her manager, not the producers who had worked with her for 30 years. It existed in the box and in her memory and nowhere else. Until Stephen Colbert called. He hadn't known about the song when he called. He had called to invite her to the Late Show, simply that, a conversation about her return to performing after her illness, about what music meant to her now, about the years that had passed since René. Standard late-night territory. She had said yes because she was ready, finally, to talk about some of it. It was during the pre-interview call, 3 days before the tapping, that she had mentioned it. Offhandedly. The way you mention things you have been carrying so long they have become part of the landscape, present but unremarked upon. She had said, "There is a song I wrote the night he died that I have never played for anyone." Stephen had been quiet for a moment. Then he had asked carefully if she would consider playing it. She had said she didn't know. She had said she would think about it. She had not slept for 2 nights after that phone call. The Late Show that Thursday had the particular stillness of a room that understands it is holding something fragile. The audience knew who was coming. They had filed in with a quiet that was different from the usual pre-show energy, not subdued, just careful. The way you are careful in the presence of something that deserves care. Celine walked out and the audience rose, and the applause was the kind that carries love in it, not the celebrity love of fans for a famous person, but something more personal. The love of people who had watched someone go through something real and had felt, watching, that they were somehow part of it. She was 56 years old. She had been through things that would have broken most people and had come out the other side not unbroken. She had never claimed to be unbroken, but still standing, still singing, still here. There was something in the way she carried herself that communicated all of that without words. She sat, Stephen sat, and for 20 minutes they talked about the illness, about the return to the stage, about what it meant to perform when performing had always been the thing that connected her to everything she loved. She was funny in the unexpected way that people are funny when they have been through enough to stop being precious about anything. She made the audience laugh twice in the first 5 minutes. And then Stephen asked about René. Not carefully, directly, the way you ask when you have decided that careful is not what the moment needs. "Tell me about him," Stephen said, "not the story everyone knows, tell me something true." Celine looked at him for a moment. Then she said, "He used to leave notes, everywhere. In my coat pocket, in my makeup bag, inside my sheet music before a show, just small notes, 3 words, 4 words, never long." He said long notes were for people who weren't sure what they wanted to say. She smiled, the complicated smile of someone whose grief has become part of their love rather than separate from it. He was always sure. "What did they say?" Stephen asked. "Different things," she said. "Sometimes just my name, sometimes," she stopped, "sometimes just encore, like a request, like whatever had just happened between us, he wanted it again." The studio was very quiet. "I found one," she said, "in the pocket of a coat I hadn't worn in 2 years, after he was gone, a note I had never seen. It said, 'You will be okay, I already know.'" Several people in the audience were crying, silently, without drawing attention to themselves, the private crying of people who have been ambushed by their own feelings. Stephen looked at her steadily. "Celine," he said, "when we spoke before the show you mentioned a song." She looked at him. She had known this was coming. She had spent 3 days deciding whether she was ready and had arrived at the answer that she would not know until the moment arrived. "I mentioned a song," she said carefully. "You wrote it the night he died." "Yes." "You've never played it for anyone." "No." Stephen was quiet for a moment. Did you bring it? He asked. Celine reached into the small bag beside her chair. She removed a wooden box, small, simple, the kind that might hold jewelry or letters. She set it on the desk between them. She did not open it. Subscribe and leave a comment, because what Celine Dion did next and what came out of that box stopped every person in that studio completely. The studio was so silent that the sound of the box on the desk was audible. Stephen looked at it, then at Celine. You don't have to, he said. I know, she said. She looked at the box for a long moment. 8 years of looking away from it. 8 years of reaching for something else and finding it by accident and closing it immediately. 8 years of the song existing only in the box and in her memory. She opened it. Inside, folded 3 times, were 3 pages of hotel stationery. She took them out. Her hands were not entirely steady. She did not try to make them steady. She unfolded the pages. She looked at the words she had written on the night of January 13, 2016. The slightly smeared second page. The handwriting that was different from her usual handwriting, looser, less controlled, the handwriting of someone writing in the dark in every sense of the word. She looked up at Stephen. I don't know if I can sing it, she said honestly. You don't have to sing it, Stephen said. You can just tell us what it says. Celine looked at him, then at the pages. Then at the audience, 390 people sitting in complete stillness, holding whatever they were holding. Waiting without demanding. She began to read. The song was not finished. It had a verse and a chorus and the beginning of a second verse that stopped mid-sentence, the way things stop when the person writing them has run out of what they needed to continue. The verse was about a room, the hotel suite, the piano, the particular quality of the silence after someone who had filled every room they ever entered was no longer in it. The chorus was a single question, asked 4 times in slightly different ways, the kind of question that has no answer and asks itself anyway. Where do I put the love now? She read it quietly without performance in the voice of someone reading something private in a private place who has temporarily forgotten that 400 people are listening. The slight smear on the second page, the mid-sentence stop, all of it. When she finished, she folded the pages, put them back in the box, closed it. The studio was silent for a very long time. Stephen did not fill the silence. He sat with it the way he had learned over 20 years of this to sit with things that needed to exist before they were responded to. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. Where do you put it? He asked. The love, 8 years later, where does it go? Celine looked at him. Into the music, she said. All of it, every note I sing, every show, every time I stand on a stage and open my mouth. She paused. He is why I sing, he was always why I sang, he knew that before I did. She looked at the box on the desk. The love doesn't go anywhere, it just changes shape. Stephen nodded. Will you sing something? He said. Not the song from the box, something else, something for him. Celine was quiet for a moment. Then she stood up. She walked to the piano that had been placed at her request at the side of the stage. She sat down, she placed her hands on the keys, and she sang not one of her famous songs, not the ones the audience knew, but something simpler. A melody that sounded like it had been waiting inside her for a long time and had simply decided that tonight was the night to come out. She sang without words for the first 2 minutes. Just the melody, just her voice, just the piano. Then the words arrived, not written words, not rehearsed words, but the words that came in the moment, the way words come when you have finally stopped protecting yourself from what you actually feel. She sang about a coat pocket, about a note, about encore. When she finished, the studio was silent for a long moment. Then Celine Dion put her head down on the piano keys and cried. Not quietly, not carefully, the way you cry when you are finally somewhere safe enough to do it completely. Stephen stood up, he walked to the piano. He stood beside her and put his hand on her back and did not say anything and did not try to stop it and did not look at the cameras. He just stood there while one of the greatest singers in the world cried over the keys of a piano on a Thursday night in November in a television studio in front of everyone. The wooden box was still on the desk. The song was still inside it. Some things stay in boxes. Some things come out when the time is right and the room is safe and the person sitting across from you has asked the right question and then had the grace to wait. René Angelil had left a note in a coat pocket that said, "You will be okay, I already know." He was right, she was okay, not unbroken, she had never claimed to be unbroken, but okay, still singing, still here, still putting the love somewhere it could be heard. That's enough, that has always been enough. If this story moved you, like this video and subscribe because some love stories don't end, they just change shape.